A vague disclaimer is no one's friend. This podcast will look at episodes in relation to Buffy and Angel as a whole, and therefore contains spoilers for the entirety of both series. If you haven't seen all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel the series, go and watch them before you listen to this. Remember, you've been warned.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
That's why there's us, champions. We live as though the world were as it should be, to show it what it can be.
The Earth is definitely doomed.
It's Tuesday, so it must be time to return to the Hellmouth. We're going through the Buffyverse episode by episode and a look back at Joss Whedon's iconic shows. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
I'm Andie.
I'm David.
I'm Jan.
And I'm Logan.
Today we are talking about Passion, which is episode 17 of season 2. It originally aired February 24th, 1998, and was written by Ty King and directed by Michael Gershman, which seriously surprised me when I looked up who wrote and directed this. I'm like, how is this not a Joss episode? But also, thinking about it, I was like, this was obviously not a Joss episode in terms of directing, because this is a fucking beautiful episode. And I'm not trying, I am shading Joss, but at this point, Joss had not quite reached, he'd only done like 2 episodes.
Any kind of visual style, yeah.
But Michael Gershman, and I was like, who dat? Because the name didn't jump out at me. I looked it up. This is his first episode of Buffy directing. He will direct 9 more episodes after this, but he was the director of photography.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, okay. So everything makes so much more sense now. He was like in charge of the cinematography, so that's why this episode looks so fucking cinematic.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
Right at that opening scene. That crowd scene is done really well. The lighting looks, which is, we've complained about a lot these first few seasons, the lighting, and then they obviously get a better budget as they move into season 2. But even for that budget, this is a standout episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, it looks
amazing. And the cinematic stuff changes throughout by season 7. It's actually really beautifully lit, but they still have a smaller budget. It's still, second season and not quite visually filing on cylinders, but this episode is gorgeous.
Yeah, there's still some times where it looks like things are like shot in like a storage bin.
And it's still slightly grainy. It's just slightly grainy.
It only looks like that because it is shot in a storage bin.
True. I mean, the bronze is a giant storage bin, basically.
So we start out with Angela stalking Buffy.
And monologuing, which he loves.
Yep.
Monologuing and stalking are his 2 favorite things.
And brooding. Well, I guess he doesn't brood as much.
No, Angel doesn't brood.
Angel broods.
I think that it's one of the most effective voiceovers of any series. It's like really iconic. Of any series that doesn't normally use a voiceover, right? Because Buffy doesn't. I mean, it's not Jane the Virgin where there's the best freaking voiceover in the history of all things.
I would have gone Veronica Mars.
Oh, Veronica Mars, it's good too. But in this, it's so iconic and it's so...
and there's a very weird, twisted noir, film noir, even though it's in color, etc. It's like a film noir feel to me, just so that sort of broody, atmospheric. It's phenomenal. It really works well for this script too.
Yeah. I think one of the best things about it is that it's very philosophical rather than, talking about exactly what's happening with characters. It's Angel's monologuing.
It lays out the mission statement for the episode, basically.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thesis statement. The way they carries on into Whistler's appearance in the show and his narration, which I think works as well.
Even though Ty King is solely credited for this, I would not be surprised if Joss took a pass over the Passion monologue.
Oh, Joss's fingerprints are all over this fucking
thing.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. Totally. I mean, there are some funky writing things that I want to talk about later. Some actual dialogue, but the mood of the episode, that freaking monologue voiceover, it's creepy and it's iconic and it's gorgeous.
And I have a complaint.
Oh no.
Oh no, really? That's so surprising.
Please tell the complaint.
Way back in the first episode, Giles gives Buffy this whole speech about how Slayer should be able to sense vampires. And it's like, I mean, he's 10 feet away. How does she not notice he's there? Has she still not learned to sense vampires?
She literally senses him later in the episode, not 10 minutes later in the episode. She's like,
I was wondering whether he like had some kind of like vampiric cloaking device that we had here never heard of before. Because nobody sees him. I mean, like, granted, vampires are stealthy in general, but here it's like he's super, super sneaky, invisible, whatever, Angelus.
Yeah, that bugs me because Buffy should be like on her toes about him at this point, as we will learn more and more as this episode goes on.
It's not a complaint. It was just a weird thing, especially given the things of last week's episode. The fact that it seems like Buffy is like suddenly sexy dancing with Xander again at the Bronze. It's like that just seemed like kind of weird. Like she's not dancing with her friends. She's not dancing with Willow or anything. She's like kind of sexy dancing with Xander, which is a throwback. And I'm like, why is she doing that particular thing?
I think that Buffy just kind of sexy dances. I think that's just the way that Sarah dances.
Yeah, I think it's just dancing.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird thing, and she's dancing with Xander of all people. So
yeah, well, I didn't find it particularly sexy. I actually felt it was very much a callback to School Hard. Spike stalking Buffy while she was dancing with her friends, and in this one we have Angela stalking Buffy while she's dancing with her friends. This is the first episode where we get Angel's/Angelus's interest in art, in being an artist, which I think pairs really nicely with Spike being a poet. I think they need to release a book.
Yeah, except that Angelus is a much better artist than Spike is a poet.
That's true.
Yeah, but all of Angelus's drawings are really fucking creepy, so it balances out.
But nicely done.
Portrait of an artist is a tortured young vampire.
And we'll see Angel sketching and drawing not creepily throughout Angel, actually.
Yeah.
It's still pretty creepy when he does
Truth.
Because usually when he's doing it, it's like, I'm obsessed with Darla right now. I'm going to be drawing some pictures. And yeah. I love my boy Angel, but even when he's like a good guy, he's still kind of creepy.
He is. Yeah, you're like,
200 years of Arrested Development does a number on a dude.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
I do want to ask Giles, like, what the fuck is he thinking? Like, when Buffy comes in with the drawing and is like, he was in my room last night, and Giles asks who? It's like, who the fuck do you think?
I don't know, the Pope?
Principal Snyder!
That's even creepier.
I mean, like, who would concern Buffy about coming into her room at night? And who has already done it like 1,000,000 times?
Right.
And she says he. It's not like Willow was in my room last night.
I've read that fanfic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, yeah.
It's just like, Giles, use some deductive reasoning here, bud. Creepy picture. He was in my room.
I mean, it could have been Xander, because he's creepy fucker, but not as good of an artist. You're like, yeah. Well, you have two choices, Giles. Either Xander or it was Angel.
But I have to say, like, Giles is everyone is a little out of it, in my opinion. It's like one of my first notes is, how did they not think to try to get the houses unvampire friendly until now?
Yeah.
And if such a spell exists, why don't the Watchers just have it to hand? Why is Giles going, oh, I don't know if there's a spell, I'll look?
True that. The Watchers are useless.
That just doesn't make sense.
Well, does Giles find it from the Watchers Council, or does he get it from that book that Jenny gets him?
It from the Jenny book.
Yeah, he's not sure there is actually a spell until then. And you're right, that is like dumb, because this shouldn't have been the first time somebody needs to uninvite a vampire into their home.
Well, I'm sure actually probably in most situations where a vampire gets invited into somebody's home, somebody ends up dying soon afterwards, so it's probably not like a situation
but you would think the Watchers Council has had episodes of someone, the maid, inviting someone in, and someone in the house lives, or someone else wants to live in the house eventually, and
once the person who owns the house dies, I'm pretty sure the invitation is revoked.
What about moves?
About what?
Moves, they have to re-invite them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you invite them before you have a place, then they can come in, because that happens
Because that
in
happened
Angel.
to Cordelia.
Yes.
Right. He's like, you invited me before. And you're like, what?
Yeah. I do have another Giles issue. I don't know if this is so much Giles being relatively clueless or the fact that it was the 90s, but he's talking about the battle strategy of Angelus trying to break down Buffy, saying it's battle strategy. He's trying to throw you off base. And I'm like, no, Giles, this is stalking. This is the horrific mental abuse of your Slayer.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she says, oh, like, ignore him and he'll just go away. And, like, I want to slap Giles at that point because Buffy is right. It's like, this is abuse. This is stalking. It's not just like, oh, he's messing with you and he's, at some, like, weird haka whatever.
Yeah, I do think it probably is Giles not knowing how to quantify it with his job as a watcher.
I think he's going for the practical rather than the emotional. It's like he has to, like he's trying to get to you, so you have to not respond to this because that's what Buffy has to do. And he's just telling her that, but he's shoving the sympathetic and emotional stuff aside for the practical. And I think that is part of his, role as a watcher. And although Giles is a more sympathetic watcher than most, he still has all that watcher training, and I think that's getting in the way.
And he's still a dude that doesn't understand the terror and horror of a woman being stalked. Because that's not something that dudes think about. Like bigger heterosexual, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, right? It's like a lot of men, even now, are like, oh, I didn't understand that was that bad for you.
He's a dude who not only has battle skills despite his propensity for getting knocked out, but he also has a grasp on, like, really strong magic. So, like, he's not somebody who feels afraid a lot, but he is going at this in a way that's dangerously pragmatic. What he says to Buffy when she's talking about telling Joyce, you can't be a slave to your passions or whatever. It's not the smartest way to go about it.
No, I'm blaming the watcher training.
Especially knowing that, like, Angel psychologically and physically tortured Drusilla before he turned her. So, he's got this pattern, and it's not just like, oh, well, he's kind of annoying, yeah, ignore him. This is somebody who has, like, a reputation, and we've seen the actual outcome of what he's done to people.
No matter what, if Buffy responds to it, if Buffy doesn't, no matter what, Angel's going to step it up. And that's what we see in this episode, Angel stepping it up. He's going to kill people. We already know that, and he's already starting to torture, so.
Man, that shot of him looming over her, I mean, it was creepy when he would come in her room and look at her when he had a soul, but that image of him looming over the bed, still 20 years on, terrifies me.
It makes my skin crawl.
And the way it's shot, because we talked about how well directed this is, it's terrifying in an actual horror movie way, not like horror comedy like Buffy can be.
Now, a lot of this is shot like horror movie. I mean, we'll talk about that more later, but there's some scenes here that are just like, oh my God, especially like the first time you see it. I mean, granted, we're rewatching it now, but I remember being like, really, like, I thought, is he going to try to kill Buffy? Like, what is going on here?
I was legit scared during this episode.
We have Giles and Jenny together, and they're fucking heartbreaking. But I am very curious as to why does I guess it's because she's a member of their clan, but why does Jenny think that her people were the people that Angelus hurt the most? He killed a lot of people.
I assume it's because that's what her family
culture taught her.
Yeah, because we see the flashback as to what happens to the Calderush girl on Angel. She doesn't get any more dead than anybody else. And frankly, I would say that Drusilla was probably tortured.
100% the worst.
Yeah.
Because we also see the flashback what happens to Drew. So, and it's
mean, Yana, Calderush she was taught in her culture, like it's a cultural heritage, and we're all informed by the way we're raised and the narratives we're told in our lives. So to her people, it was the worst thing he ever did, and they hurt them the most.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw Uncle Enyas, you really do get the feeling that her people really, like, whatever happened, you take anything that can happen. If it happened to us, it's worse.
Basically, they've let themselves be entirely formed by Angelus. Even though, actually, if you look at it, Darla did worse to them. Because Darla kills off most of them.
I know, right?
Oh, by the way, when I forget if we've gotten to this scene yet, but when Willow talks about Giles finding a spell to undo the vampire invitation, she says he's Bookman. I want to know, can I be Bookman? Do I get a costume?
Yeah,
I totally want to be Bookman.
See, I know a lot of Bookman. I would have thought Penman for you, because I know you like your pens.
I do like my pens, but I have a lot more books than I do pens.
Well, you know, there's plenty of opportunity for you to cosplay that, David, and I would like to see that. I would like to see.
I mean, if you let me make you a cosplay where you're Bookman, then and you will actually wear it, then yes, you will be Bookman.
Hey, I can even think of a specific book.
I want you to cosplay as Giles, David.
You could be a walking ad for my book, or you could be a walking ad for a book you're in. It would be even better.
Just like a sandwich board.
Well, even better though. Like the guys outside the the electronics store dancing around like dressed with a cell phone. So
okay, moving on. Buffy talking to Joyce about so I dated this, remember that really hot guy that I was friends with? Yeah, I dated him and he's getting creepy.
Yeah, and Joyce is like, "Oh yeah, oh that guy. Oh really, you didn't remember that guy?"
And it's like, as we talked about last week, she just got these creepy roses from somebody, and Joyce like doesn't put two and two together. Like, oh, you mean the guy that sent you the flowers or anything? She's just like, oh yeah, that guy, and like totally discounts the whole thing.
Later on, Joyce is like, why? I want you to talk to me about these things, and it's like, Joyce, talk to your fucking daughter right now because she's Buffy's like trying to shut her down. It's like, has he done anything? No, Joyce, you have to like probe deeper.
Yeah, I mean, and also, but I will say that Buffy's trying to obviously she can't tell her mom. I mean, she could tell her that, her stalker ex-boyfriend is a vampire. But like Buffy, I mean, and children tend to downplay, even adult children tend to downplay things to their parents.
Yeah.
I've had to have this conversation with my mother when I was around Buffy's age. Not my boyfriend was an evil vampire, but I definitely had.
So this is a really specific conversation, Andie.
Yeah, I was like, so my boyfriend's a vampire, and but I actually did have to sit down with my mom and dad and say, listen, you remember that guy I went a couple dates with, and they're like, I don't know, you date so many people that I'm like, okay, so this specific one, this is what he looks like. If he shows up at the house. But my parents were much more proactive and wanted to talk about my feelings and how, so yay, Mom, thank you.
Yeah, Joyce's dispassionate thing here. It frustrates. I mean, granted, Buffy is sort of downplaying it, but she's still not like getting a clue at all. And she's a single mom. She should be more aware of predatory men and predatory boyfriends than like your average not disdaining housewives or anything, but somebody who's like very sheltered and kind of doesn't deal in the world and single men and dating and all that, or not necessarily single men, but you know what I'm saying.
Remember that college boy who was tutoring me? Yeah, we were dating and it ended badly. Joyce, shouldn't you be flipping the fuck out about this 26-year-old who was dating your 16-year-old?
Right. I mean, she does later, but it's like, yeah, why weren't you worried about it 2 days ago?
Oh, Joyce.
Oh, Joyce. I mean, poor Christine Sutherland. Like, the inconsistency of Joyce's reactions and emotions, and she plays it the best she can. It's like once Joyce finds out, she gets a lot better.
Once we get past Dead Man's Party, then I'm much, much happier with Joyce.
I just realized Joyce is also the person who dated Ted, so she really should know about creepy dudes. Like
we skipped over, and just because it's so cute, and I love to yell, Jonathan!
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's in my notes.
Come in to John, and they're like, what is this, a Barnes and Noble? Like, I freaking love that. And okay, I just want to make a little side note on Jonathan, on Danny Strong. If you follow him or Sarah Michelle Gellar on Instagram, they've been making adorable posts at each other and talking about how on the unaired pilot, they became friends when they talked about their loves of musicals, especially the musical Chess, which Danny Strong just rewrote the book for Chess, and they did it at the Kennedy Center, and Sarah flew out to Washington to see it. And it was just a sweet post to remind you that Sarah and Danny are actually as good of friends as she is with, other more than some of her other co-stars. So I just thought that was really side note. so sweet that she took the time. Someone that she met on the freaking unaired pilot, she never thought she was going to see again, and then became Jonathan's such a part of the history of the show.
Right.
So, yeah.
And Danny Strong is so wonderful. I'm so proud of him. And Chess is one of my favorite. The book is terrible, so I hope he. But
thank you, because I really hated Chess.
The music is really freaking great. So anyway, side note, yay, Danny and Sarah's like long-lasting 20-year friendship.
And Squee Jonathan, he came into the library to look for books on Stalin.
Yes. But also, I gotta say, the Barnes & Noble comment is good, but even better is when Giles goes, "This is the school library," and Xander goes, "Since when?"
I really like that they all just kind of looked at each other and walked out.
Yeah.
So I think one of the freakiest, there's a lot of freaky stuff in this episode, but actually one the freakiest for me is when Willow's talking on the phone and she feeds the fish and like if you look there aren't any fish in that tank, but you don't notice it until after you know what's going to happen. And then that scene of the fish just like coming out of that envelope is just damn.
The only issue with that is that if anybody's ever had like fish and had fish die, I'm surprised she didn't smell it like halfway across the room, because dead fish are pretty gross. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like I'd forgotten about that scene until we were watching it, and I didn't twig that there were no fish in there, because it's one of those like TV things. Half the time when you have like a fish tank or something in the background, there aren't any fish. They just feed it, and it's like, they're going through the motions, like they drink fake tea or whatever.
And they filled the tank up pretty well. Like you had like the stuff.
Yeah, the diving guy, and there's other like tchotchkes in there, so you don't really think about it. So, but yeah, that is a really sick scene. It's very twisted.
Yeah, and Willow says she's really glad that her parents didn't let her get a puppy.
Which is what Buffy said in the last episode.
Call back to the last episode.
Right, where she's like, Giles is like in the puppy. She's like, I don't have a puppy, skip it. Right? Like, she literally told Giles and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. She's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't have a puppy. I don't have a dog. I don't need her.
Yeah, though, I mean, Willow's pretty blasé about her parents. Like, are they not home? Like she's not worried about Angela's killing her parents while she's gone at Buffy's.
Well, maybe they're a temple. Ira and whatever Mrs. Rosenberg's name is.
Sheila.
Holy
crap. I was able to pull that out of nowhere.
That's okay.
Well, to be fair, she is the only one of Willow's parents we ever see.
Yeah.
True.
We just hear about Ira.
The other thing that bothers the fuck out of me in this episode, we talked about this a little bit when we, talked about the last episode, is the inconsistency of the writing of Xander. He is so mean in this episode. His humor, I mean, he's not directly mean to Buffy, but a lot of these lines he throws out and his snark is a really biting snark in this episode.
Yeah.
Does anybody else notice that? It's just these really, and
He's
it's
angry.
unnecessary comments. But even at the beginning of the thing, it's these very pointedly, I mean, Xander's comments are obvious, a lot of times unhelpful, but they're funnily unhelpful, right? You're like, oh, Xander. But this time they have this really biting derailment of conversation, which again is the inconsistency between writers on how to write dialogue for Xander. Sometimes he's jovially stupid, and sometimes he's this snarky, biting. I don't know. Xander's side comments were not funny to me.
He was mean in this episode.
Yeah, he was very mean, and not just for the reasons. Like, I get the faster pussycat kill speech, like that. He was very angry there. Mm-hmm. But the comments, they just grossed me out, and I just didn't like the writing. I don't like Xander to begin with, but the writing here was just unnecessarily cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Not Xander, the writing of Xander was unnecessarily cruel.
It doesn't look like it does later on, but this is the first appearance of the Magic Box.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Is it called the Magic Box? We don't know. We don't see the sign.
It's just the Boogity Boogity store, or whatever the hell they call it.
You see something on the window. I don't think it says the Magic Box.
No, I don't think it is the Magic Box yet. From the way they refer to the shop through the show, like always joking about like the shop owners not surviving, they always do imply that it is the same store. It's just that it has a high turnover rate of
Which
owners.
is so weird because it's not the same layout and the steps down
It's
into
not.
it.
It's
and
definitely
it's not the same.
It's not, but in universe it is supposed to be the same place. But yeah, so we get the first appearance, and we got the first appearance of the Orb of Thessaly, which, by the way, that was the French name for this episode, the Orb of Thessaly.
Oh, interesting. I did
Except
not know
in
that.
French, so it was like Le Boule de Thessaly, or something like that.
Beautiful.
I am curious as to why the rituals of the undead would be in Romanian, considering that there is an actual Kalderash language. But I've given up all. It's again, it's, you know, as Andie said in the last episode, it's shooting I-beams magic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like illogic here too.
Speaking of the magic shop, I have a continuity thing. It's like the guy says that Uncle Enyos was a good customer.
How long was he in town?
Right.
I mean, exactly. I mean, like, why is he buying stuff from a local Sunnydale magic shop?
Enough that he talks about his niece.
Maybe they do mail order. I mean, you know.
But like, really? I mean, doesn't he live somewhere in Europe? Don't they have like closer mail order? I mean, the shipping would be prohibitive.
Well, maybe it's a famous place, kind of like the way the Magical Child, you know, or enchantments in downtown New York were and are like world famous. So, you know, there's a special touch if it comes from there, even if it's the same. Yeah, maybe it's like touched by the Hellmouth, so therefore it's you know, slightly better quality stuff, or it's just prestige.
I actually did that in my fanfic. I had like this mystical sword, and it was forged from the tooth of an old one in the fires of the Hellmouth.
Nice.
Which is probably taking Hellmouth way too literally, but fuck it. It was, you know, it was a cool sword. Just a random comment. Jenny looks so beautiful in this episode.
Yeah, but also, I was thinking when watching it, that outfit screams 1990s like fashion.
But the good 90s.
Yeah, the good one, because it's like
because I remember the sheer
the tank top, the tank top camisole thing under or over like a sheer top, and her shoes with the chunky heels, and then the long skirt. It's just like it's beautiful outfit. It's like, oh my god,
beautiful outfit, and it's very not age. I hate the word age appropriate. I really, really do. But it's not the same thing that Buffy and Cordelia would wear, but while still making her look like a mature adult woman, but still fashionable. And she looks absolutely, yeah, she does. She looks gorgeous.
I would wear it now. That's how I feel about it.
David, given last week's episode and your comments, anything to say on Gin fashion?
Yeah, I wish she was wearing the raincoat, because it's a really nice raincoat. And
she looked like absolutely like stunning.
She looks great. I mean, that is a really good look on her.
Also, the makeup they gave her, they made her look very ethereal. It's a good look to die in.
And one does wonder if, given what happens later in the episode, if they weren't pushing, making her look, you know, beautiful and ethereal and...
Oh, I'm sure.
But also the muted colors and the sort of, I mean, it was a really great choice by the costume designers. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to die, at least die pretty.
Right. And the funny thing I was thinking is that it's not, I mean, she stands out in like every scene she's in, and but it's sort of a gray with like embroidery or whatever, gray and floral. It's not like this loud outfit that, you know, but somehow it like she stands out in every shot too. It just, she looks great.
It's distinctive without being over the top. Yeah, gaudy. Thank you.
This is the first episode where it's made absolutely clear that Willow is Jewish. I mean, granted, it was pretty clear if you just look at what her last name is and everything, but they actually state outright that, you know, that Willow is Jewish.
Mishpacha!
There's a scene, that very short scene with Jenny and Jenny and Buffy. Where she is a little, and she knows she's going in to talk to her about Giles, and she says the shitty thing, but then she thinks about it. Even within her own pain, Buffy is becoming a mature person that is, I mean, we'll see it at the end of the episode, her absolute concern and just love for Giles. And that even shows in that short scene where she decides to suck up her own fucking feelings to make... It's hard for teenagers to suck up their own feelings.
Yeah, especially in this type of situation.
Yeah. I mean, where it was an absolute betrayal of trust. So I just want to commend my girl for thinking about it's hard. I mean, we talked about it in previous episodes about Buffy and Giles getting to know each other and seeing each other for more than, but it's also hard to like think, you're so absorbed, and when it's your parents, you don't think about their sort of inner life sometimes, and she really did take the time to do that for Giles, for her mentor and the person that she truly loves.
Sarah is also incredible in this episode. Her acting is so on point.
So great. So great.
According to my notes, we're back to Joyce.
Joyce. Yeah. Great scene, though.
And this is Angelus trying to grab Joyce and basically tell her, everything that's gone on.
I will say Joyce does keep her cool. She's very firm and very direct.
She's like, you have to go away.
You have to go away.
Just kind of beelining towards the house. Joyce, you should call the police. You can't just say, I'm going to call the police. Just, you got to get into the house and call the police because he's obviously unstable. And 2, don't look so shocked that your 17-year-old daughter slept with that really hot guy. When
I mean, yeah. My 17-year-old daughter was like, I would be like, I get it.
I feel you.
Let's talk about your emotional, because I'm not a mom, but I would be a better mom than Joyce.
Especially considering the last episode, and it's like, they remember this happened. She hardcore came on to Xander. Like, hardcore. They didn't get some sort of amnesia, Right. They remember. As evidenced by Buffy being like, hey, thanks for not, sexually assaulting me. Big props. Yes. So, like, maybe take a step back, Joyce. Take a breather.
Yeah, we were talking also before about the horror movie elements. I mean, I just think that scene with Joyce and like Angel, to me, that's very tense and that's very like horror movie too. And like, is she going to get into the house? Is he going to kill her? It just feels like that sort of like 90s slasher, film. And it's good that the tension is like really good. And the fact that she gets in the house and then, Buffy basically slams the door in his face. It's like, oh my God, I can breathe now. So even knowing what was going to happen, it's still there. So like,
that episode still is so effective because I get still legitimately, I know what's going to happen. I'm prepared, but it legitimately gets to me again as a woman.
Yeah,
it really I don't know if that was the point of the episode, but as a woman living in this world, this episode really gets to me at a very visceral level.
This episode, there's so much tension going on different levels because you have Buffy's entire storyline, which is completely separate from Jenny's storyline because there is like a Jenny storyline, and there's all of these peaks and valleys and they kind of intersect with each other, and that's why everything works so well because you have Angel, like you think initially that the problem of the episode is going to be Angel's trying to get into Buffy and Willow's houses. And, once you get to this point where it's like, sorry, Angel changed the locks, then you take a breath and it's like, oh my God, everything's okay. And then you get to the fucking school.
It does. It sets it up really well. It's not, they create such a tension in this episode and it actually pays off because you get lulled into that false sense of security. And oftentimes, as Jan said, this has a really horror movie feel. People tend to overplay their hand when it comes to that. Like the first thing that comes to mind is the American remake of The Ring. I thought that movie ended like 6 times because it just kept punching you in the face with all these random. But they do it so masterfully in this episode that you think, okay, so this is the main point, is to keep Angel out. We've done that. What could happen? What could possibly go wrong? Well,
it's essentially. It's the same thing with magic, like stage magic. It's all about misdirection. I mean, that's what this all. And this is true of much narrative fiction, is that you essentially you have to find ways to hide your real intent to make the story work.
I don't mind a good twist in a film, but like Logan said, it's like when it's that purposeful telegraphed twist. This isn't a telegraphed.
Well, no, not at all.
I mean, there are something that going back and watching it as many times as I have, there are some subtle telegraphing things that are great on a rewatch. Yeah, but in the initial watch is like, and they're nuanced and they're like, yeah, I mean, this is a great 45-minute little horror, and which is probably why it plays, because you get something like even like Logan's example of The Ring, where it's like, did this movie end? Oh, is it ending? Because they have, sometimes you have a lot of creative freedom within structure, and the structure of a television episode is 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Yeah, and because the directing is so great, it just, and that ratchets up the tension even more.
Yeah, also speaking of misdirection, I mean, I think this is the first time really that Joss has ever, where he really like lays down the hammer in terms of romantic relationships. I don't think we really have seen like that if you can't be happy in a relationship in a Joss Whedon universe, somebody's going to die, somebody's going to break up. I mean, yeah, we have Angel and Buffy breaking up, but it's not this. This is the first time we really get that 16-ton weight dropped on us. And I think at the time, nobody knew that this was going to happen. I mean, we see Giles and Jenny talking and you think, oh, they're going to get back together. Yay!
So I guess that Jenny was gonna die because of the promos.
Promos. I think that's what
the promos were like.
Trying to bring up.
What are these people?
Watching it later, I had no idea.
Yeah.
There was some promo, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure out of the people they showed in that promo clip, it's gonna be. I mean, it's still. I mean, I didn't know for sure, but I had an inkling that it might be Jenny because I thought, at this point in the series, it would have been too much to take out Willow or Xander or Giles or Joyce even.
Yeah.
So,
well, promo monkeys are always separate from the main production. That's always handled by the show.
Right. Yeah.
This was actually meant by Joss to be Jenny's death was supposed to tell you nobody's safe. In terms of this episode being structured very much like a horror movie, it's a horror movie where you actually care about the people that are being terrorized. Because so often in horror movies, it's like, oh, there's just, it's the bimbo, or it's, the archetypes from Cabin in the Woods, which Joss and Drew Goddard will later get into.
Cannon fodder, basically, yeah.
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 I just realized something else, though. We were talking about horror movie tropes, and in a weird way, I mean, one of the horror tropes is, people get killed by the slasher/stalker because they have sex. And I'm just realizing, like, Jenny's intent was to have sex with Giles that night, probably.
Yeah.
Well, she's coming by his apartment that night. There's at least a hint that, maybe
going by someone's apartment to talk out your stuff is a lot different than going over just to have sex.
Yeah, and also she's going over to tell Giles about the spell.
The spell,
which is pretty overriding of most of other things at this point.
It feels like there's a hint of it also, especially the way it plays out.
Well, the fact that Giles was not surprised by what was set up there, I mean, that does suggest something.
It does, but
I'm being sarcastic here anyway, but that's like one of the
I think
things.
one of the things about this episode is considering how big this episode is, how landmark this is. It is incredibly insular. There are 2 characters in this episode that are not named. You have the shopkeeper and you have the policeman, but everyone else is a major character. And we're used to episodes of Buffy where Buffy, has to save these innocent people, or, Buffy is unable to save innocent people. So this one is entirely Angelus versus the Scooby Gang. And it's the Scooby Gang is terrified of Angelus, who used to be one of them. And not only that, Angelus ends up killing one of them. Somebody who has been with them since episodes 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And he's terrorizing all of them because he terrorizes Buffy, he terrorizes Willow. Eventually it becomes Giles too. So yeah, it's very personal.
It is, and the way they set him up as a villain is so. I mean, and all the actors in this are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They're amazing. David is amazing. Sarah is just, and we'll get that when we talk about this scene where Giles finds Jenny, but I want to talk about Tony in that too. Because amazing.
Before we get to that, let's talk about the scene in the school. Obviously, they're pulling on horror tropes because otherwise you wouldn't be working in a public building like that, where a vampire can go in.
Late at night, alone, yeah.
I will say this about the 90s. This is kind of lighten up a little bit. That good job backing up your work, Jenny. And if it was today, they'd have to find another reason. Because if he just threw a laptop down on the floor,
they let's go to the cloud.
Willow may not have thought to recover the hard drive because it's just a teacher's computer. So yay for backing up your work.
Yay for dot matrix printers. I was like, really, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah, no, that one little bit was so painfully 90s because you had that humongous slab of a computer with the little floppy disk coming out of it, and then the dot matrix computer with the runners on the side.
And those enormous monitors.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have a note from way earlier in the episode. It's like, oh my God, those monitors are huge.
So very, very 90s. And yeah, she's working alone in the school late at night. There's nobody else in the school, no janitors, no maintenance people, no after, late night adult night course people, nothing. So very, very horror trope there too.
I was wondering how Jenny was going to get out of there eventually. Does she have keys? That does not seem like something they do.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jenny could get keys.
In her panic, she's trying every door available.
Okay.
Right. I think in a not panic, she knows what door just locks behind it and leads out and isn't.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. When you're panicked and running and frightened for your life, you're not thinking about what door do I have keys to? What is the best route out? She has a flight response, not a fight response or a freeze response, but you know what I mean? In a moment of panic, you're just going to try anything that is going to get you out of the building. So I'll hand wave that inconsistency.
Yeah, and there's also again horror trope because it's not quite right. The fire doors and stuff; those are never locked. You're always supposed to be able to get out of a building from those. If there's a fire in the building, because if you need a key to get out of a fire door, the ones that separate the different wings, people would die, and that's the whole point. That's why they're fire doors. They don't actually lock.
It's a
horror trope, which is fine. But I was just like
like I said, in a panic to run away, it's you never know what your body's gonna do and how much panic you're gonna go through in that moment. And God, Angel, just him showing up over the top of the shot. She's sitting there, she's starting to print the thing there, and then the camera just pans up, and he's just sitting there We're on cam right now, listeners, so I'm, of course, acting it out because that's what I do. I gesticulate and do things, but man, that shot is just...
Yeah, chills up your spine. It's even knowing he was going to be there. It was creepy as fuck. I was just like, oh my God, right.
Everything is so good. The filming is good. The writing is good. David is, David, because we're going to say so much about his acting. And we have been since Innocence. He is so good at playing evil.
This episode is his absolute best.
Yes.
In Buffy. There's some great ones that he does in Angel, but in that this is his absolute best episode.
Just the framing of the scene when they actually kill off Jenny, when it's in front of that window, and just the way that Jenny just completely is turned, and it's so painful.
And it's almost an insult. I've read this commentary.
Yes,
it's just trash.
Because it's right. He doesn't feed. He doesn't do. Obviously he's gonna.
Yeah.
He's setting this up for Giles to see with the but at the same time it's almost insulting to have a vampire kill you without actually
feeding,
which is their natural prey instinct, and to have them do it a different way. And Angel's known for but oh God.
There was also a meta reason for it. I know it's Ty King wrote this. Yeah, sure. Joss specifically said that he chose to have Jenny's neck be broken so that the audience didn't have hope that she would be alive, that she would come back as a vampire.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. You know what? Maybe I heard that on the commentary. Yeah.
It's so damn brutal. Just the fact that you don't know what's going to happen. You still kind of maybe she'll get away, and then just bam. And it's oh my God, it's over. What the hell just happened?
Yeah. In the interview, Joss also says that there was a long discussion about whether to do it, have him do it in vampire face or not. And they decided that it would be too horrible if he didn't have the vampire face. So
it's actually funny note, and spoiler for anybody who hasn't read the comics, but in the comics, Angel kills Giles.
He doesn't do
right.
He gets better though.
Does he?
Cute.
And he does it basically the same way, where Angel breaks his neck, but that time Angel has his regular face.
Ooh, okay.
So, but yes, there was a lot of debate about, because they wanted having him do it with his regular face would be too far, because you need people to still root for Angel to be with Buffy. So
yeah, you can't associate that humanity with him. He has to be a full-blown monster when he does something so monstrous, or we can't forgive him. Yes.
Absolutely. Ugh.
But
sorry, I'm
it's
just
horrible.
giving myself the willies. The whole.
It's okay.
It's just really.
We can start bashing on Joyce again.
We can,
yay.
and there is some levity in this scene because Willow has a great fucking line. But
I mean, she shames Buffy for her sexuality. She gets mad at her. She blows up. It's not. She does come through and softens by the end of the scene, and tells Buffy how much she loves her and wish. Yeah, she's like, I wish you talked to me about this. Well, Joyce, no, you don't, because you don't notice anything. But I think it's the way Christine Sutherland plays it that you feel a little more catharsis by the end of that scene with Joyce and Buffy. Like, there's not going to be as much conflict. Like, Joyce isn't going to constantly harp on it.
Joyce obviously doesn't want Buffy to talk to her.
No,
she doesn't. No, she doesn't. It's. I mean, and that's a hard. I mean, it's always like she says, "Is this the talk? Did I just give you the talk? Did we just have the talk?"
And she's 17. Why are you having the fucking talk now?
Right, exactly. Yeah, like most people have this talk at 14, 15, 13, depending. Yeah.
People have the talk like the mechanic. I don't think she never told Buffy the mechanics of it in the biology. No. But I think the talk about how emotional intimacy affects you. And again, we weren't as on it. And actually, I will say this, from the religious background that I come from, well, not come from, but that I am in as a Unitarian Universalist, we have had a curriculum that has talked about this for 30 years. And that is really great. So the kids I know get this very nuanced talk. But thinking about the kids I know that are not Unitarian, other people's friends, I'm like, how much nuance, even my nieces and nephews, how much nuance are they getting? Emcee.
Okay. I am the person here who is the contemporary with Buffy. I am 2 years younger than Buffy is. So, and also my mother was fucking hardcore Catholic. I mean, basically by the time I came around, she was not so hardcore Catholic. That's why she married my dad. But I had the talk. Like, I not only had the mechanics of sex talk, but I had a, emotional, how you deal with this kind of stuff, be open with this kind of stuff. I had that talk when I was 14.
Good for your mom. Yay.
Well, I mean, part of the reason was, there was a girl in my class who got pregnant at 14. So.
Oh, yeah. See, oh God, this is so stereotypical, but I had 10 friends become pregnant before the age of 16 or 17. But that's just sort of culturally something that happens.
I'm an older generation. I mean, I'm like 10 years or more. But you guys, and my parents were like liberal, but they were kind of uptight when it came to sexuality and, even New York Jewish background. But I don't know if it was my school, and I'm not necessarily in the most liberal of areas, but we actually had like peer group counseling, and we talked about that stuff in like sex ed class, biology class, and that kind of thing more so than even with my family. But, we had one of my friends got pregnant at the age of 17, like when she was a freshman in college. We had a couple of girls that dropped out of school when I was like 15, 16 also. They got pregnant. So, I mean, we discussed it, and there was some discussion about, are you emotionally ready? It's more than just like the mechanics or the hormones or whatever, do you want to do this and why? But it may have been my school too, but I think I got it more from like peer group.
I'm 4 or 5 years older. So but I got the mechanics. I got a lot of, well, when you love someone and you find someone you want to marry, because that's my parents' context though. That is their religious background and contect. So I don't know. Joyce
things
is so
are real different in the Deep South.
And actually, Logan being younger than all of us knows that abstinence-only education did not come into prevalence until later. We had full comprehensive sex education in the 90s. But then Logan's generation didn't get any of that at all. Because then you get into so. So
thanks, W.
I think also
thanks, W.
it just fucking kills me because the hypocrisy of it all. Because you've had Joyce go on for a season and a half, almost 2 seasons now, of, you can come to me, I've read all of the parenting books, and I just want you to talk to me. And the very second Buffy actually comes to her with a problem, because she came to her earlier in this episode and is like, I was dating this guy and it went badly. And Joyce doesn't bother to follow up on it. Joyce didn't say, how serious did you get with this guy? You're 17 years old. Did you have sex with this guy? And then Joyce gets mad that Buffy's not talking to her about the fact that she was intimate with this guy. It's, Joyce, you had the opportunity to talk to her about it, and you didn't.
Yep. I just had a little bit of a revelation. At this point, these writers were actually 4 writers in a writer's room, very young, right? Joss was 30-ish. Marty is about the same age. Yeah. None of these people had teenage children at this point.
Right.
They were all viewpointing this from the lens of, this is how I felt as a teenager in my teenage experience, as opposed to looking at a character like Joyce and Good Parenting from the... I mean, I think some of them had children, but they had very young toddler children. And so that's an interesting sort of aspect of the people and the ages of who they were when they were writing it also, and where their perspective was still in.
And also, it's suddenly striking me now, and this is spoiler alert. I mean, when we get to Band Candy and Joyce is like mentally 15, 16 years old, what does she do as soon as she gets alone with Giles? She has sex with him twice and doesn't think about it. So the hypocrisy there, too, of like her getting on Buffy, who was dating somebody, obviously seriously and felt seriously about somebody, as compared to Joyce suddenly jumping in the sack with Giles is a bit much.
A teenage kid at this point, I'd be like, I'm not telling you anything about what I did when you were your age, because I do not want you to know about what I did.
It's really weird, because I had friends even growing up, like in the 70s. I had a couple of friends whose moms were like, the sort of the stereotypical hips, divorcee, single moms dating. And my not being their daughter, I knew what they were up to, because they loved to overshare with everything they were doing. And it was kind of gross. And they were also like sharing things like The Sensual Woman and Xavier Holland, and like, talking to us, sitting down and talking to us about oral sex and things that like, okay. And I have a friend, Emcee knows her, who's a fanfic writer in another fandom. And her mom used to read her fanfic and like, basically like give her pointers and stuff.
It's all an individual parenting choice, right? And how our experiences just in this conversation are so different. But so yeah, I mean, Joyce, terrible, and then you get badness.
It's like the scene with Giles it's the worst scene ever, but it's also so fucking beautiful. Like, artistry of the scene, because the scene's silent, no, it's not silent, but it's...
And Tony's acting. Okay, Tony's face when he sees that goddamn rose, and he sees the candles, and he sees the champagne.
Joy on his face is just... But it's, other actors with less experience might have overplayed all those sort of facial... But Tony is so... And Giles is a character that's very controlled of his emotions to begin with. Right. And so, but there's absolute joy, but it's not.
It's like, it's the Clark Kent moment. He takes off the glasses and his face just glows when he sees this stuff. And it's like knowing what's going on. It's like, kill me now because you're tearing my heart out.
And when he sees the body, though, it's not this horrible shock and awe. It's this very like, and the scene with the police, it's just so.
He drains, like everything just, he doesn't fall apart. He just, he hollows out.
Tony's head is just, it is a nearly flawless piece of acting there that is
it's not just the acting, the directing in that scene, the way everything is shot is beautiful, the music that they have with it, just it's cut, the way it's cut together, it's all so beautiful. Funny bit of trivia, the singer on the recording didn't know that they were going to be used in this episode, because the studio had bought the rights from whoever had owned the rights to the recording.
Right.
And their daughter told them that they were in They recognized the piece that was in the episode. And they were very happy about it because it's like, my daughter was saying, like, how cool it was that I was in an episode of Buffy.
And also the use of music. I mean, it's La Boheme. And I mean, just it's the end of La Boheme. And, Mimi dies and, of consumption there. And she's dead on the bed and after blah, blah. So it just works, like, atmospherically, too. And, we, talk about touches of Joss. That just feels like a Joss, like, moment. But the whole building up and like walking up the stairs and all the candles on the stairs and the flowers on the stairs and you just like, oh my God, it's just like, it's such an emotional, like, stab you in the heart.
And this having been the DP of all these episodes before he directs, right?
Yeah.
That DP is going to know the actors and what to do and shoot them. And so he's going to be able to frame Tony in a way that because he knows that actor is going to be able to get which is great. And I know there are a lot of like long-term DPs on a lot of different shows that end up directing, but like there's a relationship with your actor if you have a very consistent DP for every episode. And it's so incredibly shot and framed and uses every resource in that bag in such an extraordinary way.
Yeah, this is somebody who knew the actors, knew the space, like had been around for a while. Like, I mean, while it might have been his first, directing gig, somebody who obviously knew the show enough to really, take advantage of it.
And this is something that often gets lost in the mix is knowing he could depend on the actors.
Yeah.
Yes.
To give the appropriate reactions and not have to worry that he would later have to work around that.
Yeah, and we have different levels of experience in this show, like between the actors. Like it was Nikki's really first major thing, and Allie been doing it for others. Sarah's been doing, and then you've got the maturity of Tony Head, but they all consistently come through really well. And I think this cast probably learned for each other and were communicative and very, very giving scene partners, which you can tell in a lot of this. And I think that's why Buffy works so well, even with some of the flaws we point out every week.
Yeah,
there's a real ensemble connection, and there's not one person like fighting for dominance. So it's beautifully done. I cried. I openly was crying, and 20 years on, having seen this episode at least 10 times, I still cry every single time.
Yeah, it's so iconic, and it's just like, even now talking about it, I'm getting kind of emotional because it's such a powerful, like, for any show ever, just like, it's a very iconic visual. This is a piece of art. That scene is just unbelievable.
So once we get past the blasé police, boy, are they freaking blasé.
Who don't even find Giles's weapons, even though they're in a chest.
I know,
right in the middle of the room.
Well, he's got Angel's cloaking spell is on them, obviously.
Yeah, and they don't keep the house. I mean, they have the tape up, but nobody stays at the house later. It's just, we got to bring you in for some routine questions, and then that's it. But then we get some more monologue from Angelus, while there's the wordless phone call, which there is actually words too, but I prefer not to know them because it comes off as so much better.
And I think I've read in an interview, or was it in Joss's little interview? Maybe it was in one of the Buffy magazines way back in the day, about like they had actually written a dialogue scene and all,
Yeah, there's a transcript on the Wikipedia page that I read last night. So yeah.
And actually, the phone, it was a working phone, so that both Allie and Sarah could talk to Tony.
Oh, man.
Because they thought that the reaction would be better if they actually talked to each other. I know what the dialogue is, but it's much better not thinking about that, because the scene is just so beautiful not hearing them.
Right, and just watching their reaction.
And they use this technique later on, way later on.
They do it in the body.
They do it in the body. They do it again with Dawn in the body. So they obviously learned from...
And I think what they do really well is that they don't make it silent. You can, almost as if it's muffled, you can hear Willow crying.
Yeah.
You can hear Dawn crying. And I think that makes it more powerful because, sometimes if something's really shocking, it's sort of like you suddenly have gotten in your ears or something. It was done really masterfully.
And also the fact that Angelus is like watching, listening in. There's just the level of sadism and just like cruelty at that moment is like, so evil. Ugh.
But his voiceover is so smooth.
the scene is sad, but it's also perverse.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Enjoying it so much.
It is grief on display in a really awful way. I mean,
and you can see him getting off on it, which makes it even, which, like I said, it's just horribly sadistic and evil, but it's beautiful because that's what they're trying to push, and he does it. Everybody does it right.
Well, and I was going to say, I have this at the very top of my notes that this episode, directorially wise and framing and even some of the writing, it's a great use of multiple POV and shifting POV.
Yeah.
You have Giles's POV and then you have Angel's, and especially with the voiceover, it's got this real, and it's, yes, Willow, Allie's going to break your heart with your big eyes and her tears, but that is shot through this very, malicious point of view. So you can hear it and you can feel bad for those characters, but at the same time, you're looking at it through Angel's eyes.
Yeah, and through the window, which kind of gives you a step away, too.
And the thrill of him just damaging these people.
And we get our scoobs together, and we get the scene of Xander. The faster of Pussycat kill. And fuck you, Xander.
So tone deaf.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Again, it's the writing of Xander in this episode is horrible.
I understand what his feelings are. His feelings of, we should let Giles kill Angelus because somebody should kill Angelus. But Xander's speech is entirely selfish and about
so
Xander.
Self-motivated. It's about Xander.
This whole... He was basically doing a verbal version of the I told you so dance.
Yeah, and on top of that, it feels like it's a little bit of a hint of what's going to happen later on in Becoming, where he lies to Buffy about things, spoiler alert, because it's just like, he wants Angel dead. He just like, it doesn't matter what anybody else feels, anybody cares about, he just wants him dead, and that's all that counts. And it's horrible.
He sees that Angel, won Buffy as a trophy,
yeah.
Right? And he may not want necessarily, his desire for Buffy may not be in the forefront of his mind anymore with his relationship with Cordelia, but he would still like to have the last word. He would still like to win, and Angel dying would be his triumph.
And it's not about Giles. It's not out of concern for Giles.
No, not at all.
And just even backing up before that, I can't remember if it's before or after that scene happening. Cordelia has one of the only funny parts in this episode when she keeps talking about her car.
Right.
And the and that
car. Line Willow has in the house is also good.
Right. But there's this one moment, and it's the smallest thing from Charisma, where they say, "Can you drive us to Giles?" And she goes, "Of course." And it's very focused, and unlike Xander, and again, it's in two short words, Cordelia's actual care for everybody around her versus Xander's "I told you so" mentality. Cordy knows and is emotionally honest enough to know when it's appropriate to be selfish, like she can be, and when it's, of course, what do you need, into work. And Xander is, referencing Russ Meyer, which is always great. I love Faster Pussycat Kill. It's a great film, but not in that instance.
Right, and I think that shows also, as we were saying, like, just the last episode, like, Cordy's actual growth as a character. The fact that she, who's supposed to be the mean girl, supposed to be the selfish bitch, is more aware and more giving and more concerned about other people than Xander, who's supposed to be their friend and supposed to be their ally. You're like, oh my god, I love you, Cordy. Xander, go fuck yourself.
So, moving on, back to 90s website trivia. What incredibly brassed off Slayer was one of the first
it was
websites.
It was a website.
Back in the days when there was like 5 people shipping Spuffy, and it was not called Spuffy at the time. I don't even know when they started to call it Spuffy. That feels like a very recent kind of thing.
Well, no, about at least 15 years ago.
Maybe in season 6 they started calling it Spuffy.
Season 6, yeah, maybe season 6, season 7. You started getting a lot more portmanteaus of ship names. Like before all that, you didn't have Rary or...
Yeah, you had all those weird things where you gave it a name of like the HMS Pumpkin Pie or whatever.
Kirk Spock.
Right.
Like there wasn't a portmanteau. It was Kirk Spock.
Yeah.
I was actually just trying to think of when Bennifer happened, because I feel like that was when it first happened. Like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, that's when they first really had the portmanteau.
Oh yeah, Bennifer and all those portmanteaus probably then moved over into shipping. That makes
okay.
Sense.
They got together in 2002, so
Okay, yeah, because by the time I started watching Buffy, which was probably around the same time, like season 6, I know people were calling it Spuffy already. So
yeah, that would have been season 6. So then that kind of all lines up. I'm gonna say that that's probably when that happened. But yes. Anyways, went incredibly brassed off Slayer.
So a little bit of fandom history for y'all.
And again, like the fight. Just this episode is just so. I mean, like there's actually it feels to me like this episode does not have a lot of dialogue to it.
No, and that's okay. I thought the fight choreography on the fight was a little clunky. There was a little clunkiness, but other than that, I think.
I did make a note that, I mean, I think that Angel was right. Like, whatever happened to good old-fashioned steaks? It's like, why did Giles just go in there and, like, first of all, he hits him with a quarrel. Why didn't that dust him? And then he suddenly starts going after him with a torch as compared to, like, just staking him and, like, getting rid of him. I mean, I know Giles is angry and a lot of it is just to torture Angel and get his feelings out. And we can't kill Angel anyway. But it's like, yeah, I think legitimately somebody would have gone on and just staked him.
Please stake someone with a flaming torch because it's wood.
Yeah,
I mean that would be a pretty cool kill to show, which they never did. Is just jabbing him with like a flaming.
That would actually be awesome. Iron. Yeah, because he's just kind of waving it around a lot. I mean, I think part of it is probably he's so angry he's not thinking straight.
Yeah, and I think the fight choreography is a little lacking in the first couple of seasons.
Leads up to Buffy and Giles together, and this is.
Breaks me.
It's everything.
Breaks me.
Basically, I feel like this is the culmination of Buffy and Giles's relation. This is like the beginning part of their relationship is now over. They have now gotten to know each other, and once we get to this point, they are family.
You can't leave me. I can't do this alone. Is what the quote from Buffy, and it is. I do want to say that Spike totally wanted Giles to kill Angel.
Oh yeah.
Drew, don't get involved. He totally wanted him to go
and can I just make a note that Juliet Landau, just what Drusilla was wearing, she looks absolutely amazing in like the portrait.
She always looks like
she does. She's that look especially. She's like, oh my god, you're beautiful.
She's just she always looks freaking amazing.
Yeah. I have to say the Spike Angel thing, I've been actually thinking about this for a few episodes now. It's like, I mean, my thoughts about this are a little blurry, but it's like with Angel taunting Spike the whole time, it's like, does he really not understand that this could come back to bite him in the ass?
Yeah, how does he not know that Spike isn't going to be in that wheelchair forever? Like, he's obviously going to heal someday.
Right.
And Angel's always been overconfident, though.
I keep wondering, is it overconfidence? Does he just underestimate Spike? Or does he just not give a shit?
All of the above. All of them? All of the above.
All of them. I mean, yeah, that's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Angelus is just, a swaggering, dick-waving, alpha male, I'm better than you are, and you're just this little peon, and I'm gonna screw your girl, too, so.
Yeah, the Buffy and Giles there, and Sarah and Tony, it's just, I started crying there, too.
I was gonna say,
the break in Sarah's voice is, and her love for him, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, and her maturity to say, I think about Giles. I'm not just thinking about myself and my own grief in this. I'm also thinking about Giles and what's best for him and saying, you know what? Be with Jenny. It's not, it ties back into her thoughtfulness about someone other than herself, unlike fucking Xander.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that we actually see Giles cry, that there's actually the mask cracks, and suddenly that cool, confident, like, stiff upper lip Brit is gone, and he's sobbing, and it's just like, oh my god, kill me now, please. It's beautiful. And I had friends that shipped Giles and Buffy, and as much as like age limits and I can see where that came from, because you can build on that.
It's not a trigger, it's a squick.
Yeah, I get it.
Back in the day, things were called squicks, and you're like, I don't want to read that, it squicks me out.
No, I still use that word too.
There is definitely a deep connection with the two.
Yeah, like I said, I don't particularly ship them myself, but I can so see why other people might. It's just not my thing. So yeah. So beautiful ending right there. So
I do have to call bullshit on Willow teaching long term, though. I'm starting.
I mean, we're gonna talk about that as things go on.
We'll talk about that more, though. I am wondering if possibly with all of the teacher deaths, that they just won't send any more substitutes to Sunnydale, huh?
Yeah. Or no, Schneider would be like, I love child labor. I mean,
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it's not.
I mean, I understand her teaching this one class, right? Because it's right after it happened, and you know,
and she does say that it's until the new computer science teacher comes,
and it never happens.
Right?
Right. You would see, that's the thing about this school. You would think they would do something like, sure, Willow's going to help you with this because she knows about computers, but Giles has to sit, since he's a librarian and isn't needed in the library every minute of the day, he has to go sit in class and monitor, so there's an actual adult human being in the room.
Who's also being paid by the school, because, especially public schools, I'm pretty sure there's legalities as to who can teach a public school class. You can't just waltz in and be like, oh, hi, I'm going to teach your class now. You don't know me, or I'm like a 15-year-old student, but yeah, it just, no.
Yeah, it doesn't make any freaking sense at all. But, you know, Sunnydale's logic is insane troll logic.
And of course, we've also got the thing the Damocles sword hanging over the head that the audience only knows about, that freaking floppy disk on the side of the desk that nobody else knows where it is.
Pretty genius. And that is, even in the very 90s, to have a floppy disk, it's positioned really well, and it's total foreshadowing. And that's great. A little bit of good foreshadowing, and it's even heavy-handed foreshadowing is okay, because by the time she finds it, I had forgotten about it.
The world needs more floppy disk cliffhangers. This is
right.
Yeah,
it's not as much fun with like thumb drives or cloud computing. Like, big deal, you know. No.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
okay. So final thoughts on Passion.
Oh my God. I felt like even knowing everything, I felt like I was going through an emotional ringer. And that horror movie quality, it's like a good horror movie that you can watch again. And even when you know the beats, when you know it's coming, it still scares you and it still affects you, because and in some ways it's even better because you're anticipating the shit that's going to happen. So.
I mean, I think this is in my, not even just top 10, top 5, maybe top 3 episodes. And there are other episodes that I love more for some of the other things, but like in terms of just emotional wallop, I didn't even realize how just great this episode is, and I would put it higher than a few that I think would be surprising. It's surprising to me that I'd probably put this over a couple that are more of an emotional favorite, but in terms of actual cinematic and response, you know, and that it's really far up there, really far up there.
It's a really powerful episode, and I think we've hit the point where the production team and the actors and everyone are just firing on all cylinders. And the stakes have gotten so high.
Enormously. Just the stakes are so high at this point.
Yeah. And I think there's an element of them having confidence in where they're taking it as they near into the season.
Yeah.
There's none of that like waffling you sometimes see, especially with the sophomore effort. And considering the sophomore season, the second season compared to the first season, that makes sense with this show, but they know exactly where they want to take this show, and they know that at this point right here, it seems like, and from here on out, they're pretty confident in what they're going to do.
So I just have one other comment, because I have to say this because I'm me. I have some serious problems with the idea that Jenny could computationally translate that.
I did too.
No.
Magic hoodoo hellmouth squirty eye magic.
No, but that's the point. Is
with computer.
She's not.
No, it's like I'm sorry, not squirty. Ivy magic.
Yeah, but I mean, like the fact that she's trying to translate some. She's like, I'm writing a computer program to translate this language that I don't have a translation for. That's not how
language works. I'm sorry. Are you going to sync it up to Lycos? Are you going to hook it up to Dogpile and hope they find some?
It is. I mean, like this kind of stuff is much harder than that. I mean, this is hard stuff to do if you can do it at all. And at that time, I don't think the technology was there. She's also working on basically a home computer. And there is no reason to think she has the skill, the programming skills, or the knowledge of what you would need to know to do this.
Well, she is a computer science teacher, so you would think she'd have
but it does not.
She's not like a linguistic, you know.
Right. There's
PhD.
A lot more going on with this kind of stuff. I know people who do this kind of stuff.
Look at what happens when you type some like very, very basic French into Babelfish.
Yeah, autocorrect, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Today's autocorrect should tell you this is not possible 20 years ago.
No one ever meant to say duck in a text message.
No.
I actually had a friend yesterday, because she was late getting to the show we were going to. She's like, the ducking cab's not here yet. And I'm like, oh, honey.
Okay, sometimes I do meant to type it in, but it's as a joke about autocorrect.
Yeah.
I wrote a song about duck and autocorrect once, actually. But yeah, I mean, this episode is amazing, even with the flaw of the translation and the computer
That's my
stuff.
nitpick that I had to get out.
Hey, you had very few nitpicks.
I did.
The less nitpicks David has, usually the better quality of the episode is something I have noticed.
On our website, I have Innocence listed as my favorite episode, but I actually, in rewatching this, I'm like, you know what? It might actually be Passion.
I like this.
Same here. It's just...
I think I do like this better than Innocence.
Yeah, I'd forgotten just even visually how, just visually editing. This is like a mini movie in like a 45-minute cinematic horror film.
It's absolutely, and the editing is great, and everybody, I would put this above Innocence, actually, yeah.
In terms of nitpicking, it's like you don't even think about it because it's such a good story and everything works so well that you can just kind of hand wave any of the bullshit, which in other episodes it stands out because it's just the story sucks, etc. too.
Couple of quick bits of trivia. This is on Joss Whedon's non-ranked top 10 list, so he won't say where it is on his top 10, but it is on his top 10. It is Anthony Stewart Head's favorite episode. They considered killing off Oz at first in this episode.
Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't have had the emotional impact, so yeah.
No, it wouldn't have had the same emotional impact, and also they thought he had more potential as a character still.
Yeah.
And Ed Sheeran, in the song A Fire Love, was inspired by this episode and takes samples from the song Remembering Jenny. I don't really know a lot about Ed Sheeran. But
I know nothing about Ed Sheeran except for I don't really enjoy his music.
Next time we will be reviewing a much easier episode to take, even though it has to do with dying children. We will be reviewing Killed by Death.
This is the point we've gotten to where dying children are not the upsetting parts.
I know, right? Yeah, no, it's a little bit of a breather episode. We're dealing with dying children.
Phew, finally.
Kill them younglings.
Till then.
Until then, grr, arg.
Grr, arg.
Magical shooty eye beam, grr, arg.
Grr, arg!
Grr, arg.
We'd like to thank everyone who downloaded the podcast, and an extra special thanks to everyone who shared, liked, and subscribed on social media. If you'd like your questions or comments read on the show, you can contact us on our website, returntothehellmouth.com, on YouTube at Return to the Hellmouth, on Tumblr and Facebook at Return to the Hellmouth, on Twitter at HellmouthReturn, or on email at returntothehellmouth@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read your comments on the show. Be sure to rate our show at iTunes and Stitcher, and check out our show merchandise on TeePublic and Redbubble. See you on Tuesday for Killed by Death.
Grr, arg.